So it's all lost when it comes to employment in this country. If government cannot absorb those fresh graduates or the youth, what about the private sector or private businesses? What is the current situation? Now, are there any hope for those that don't want to work in the government sector? What about those who still say that it's about the larger economy? And if the economy is doing well, definitely things will turn around. On PM Express Business Edition, you're looking at Ghana's rising unemployment situation and what should be the response of businesses. What can they do? Well, Sir Chuma Kwabwa is Chief Executive of the Association of Ghana Industries. He's here with me in studio, the Ghana Employers Association. That is Alex Frimpong, CEO. He'll join us, and also the head of the Accounts Department at the University of Ghana, Legon, Professor William Boateng, a specialty in labor economics issues. He will also join us for us to have a 360 discussion on employment, private sector, and also the academia. What should be the way out in terms of Ghana's rising unemployment situation, and what can businesses do? We'll be right back after this break. So, welcome back to PM Express Business Edition as we talk about unemployment situation in Ghana today. And what can the private sector do? If government can employ these people, what are the causal factors? What about those who say that, listen, it's about the economy? If the economy is not doing well, definitely they cannot employ. Let's do just a quick run through of some of the data based on what the Ghana Statistical Service released when it comes to the unemployment situation in the country. Just to refresh it, and it says that 1.85 million Ghanaians are unemployed. That is what the Ghana Statistical Service is saying. Well, this is what the Vice President said when he talked about the fact that 2.1 million jobs are. Now I'll be getting more clarity about the definition of jobs and job creation. And what does it mean? What about a temporary job? Can it be classified as a job or an unemployed job? We'll be getting more definition of that one. If you look at the trajectory here in terms of 2010, 2015, the percentage 2022 and 2023, you've seen the spike in the graph in terms of the unemployment situation. So can we do any parallelism with respect to when the economy is doing well? Also, average unemployment rate first to third quarter. In 2022, we look at the 13.36. In 2023, from first to third quarter, 14.73%, and an increment of 1.10%. So, breaking it down in terms of the level, look at secondary level, that's a percentage, other levels, and also tertiary. So, it appears that the more people are educated, and there's another challenge there in terms of, so those are the basic in terms of the graphs, area-wise and all those. And we'll be getting more detailed analysis of this, but Sir Chuma Kwabwa is the Chief Executive of the Association of Ghana Industries. A lot of things have happened in the economic space, and before I bring in Professor William Boateng, he's the head of the Accounts Department at the University of Ghana, Legon, and also when it comes to a brain on labor economic issues, well, if you've passed through that department, you know what he stands for on all these issues. And also, those who employ the association of, that is Ghana Employers Association, Alex Frimpong, CEO, will also be joining us. But before I bring in all these distinguished guests, let me come back to you, Chuma Kwabwa. I mean, we've heard about recovery. What is the situation now in terms of industry and how are things doing right now?
Well, thank you very much, and good evening to your viewers. Well, seriously, I'll go by the AGI Business Barometer, which is a major indicator of confidence level in the economy. And I recall in 2022, when we had the crisis, latter part of the year when we had the crisis, and then early part of 2023, we saw the AGI Business Barometer confidence level persistently falling. Clearly, it means that The economy was not in the best of shape. Industries were failing it, businesses were failing it. Therefore, we saw a decline in the indicator. But latter part of the year of 2023, and then up to now, we've seen some improvement in the macroeconomic environment. And the indicator is measured by a couple of factors. Key of it is the expectation of the confidence level in the next quarter, and then the current situation. When you put it together, clearly you could see some improvement in the confidence level, and that's what the indicator is indicating. And what it means is that there is some improvement in the macroeconomic environment. Confidence level is going up, and therefore businesses are gradually inching up to the levels that they want. But a major factor, a major indicator again, is that the level, we have what we call the baseline level. If you haven't crossed the baseline level, it means that the economy is still not in the best of shape. Below the baseline level, it means you are not performing that well. Above it, you are doing well. But then what we have noticed is that even though there has been improvement in the indicator, in the confidence level, we have still not crossed the baseline level. It means that we are not out of the woods yet, and people are still feeling the challenges.
But Mr. Kobua, some would say that yes, the macro numbers could be showing signs of recovery. But for Kobna on the street, how are these improvement or signs of recovery at the macro level impacting on industry in terms of your sales, in terms of revenue, the ability to meet your obligations, the ability to even employ more, or becoming more details on that one? Yes, the numbers are there, but is that impacting on your day-to-day dealings at the industry level?
So that's the point, George. Normally when you see improvement in the macro level,
or signs of recovery,
it doesn't immediately translate at the micro level. It takes a while, especially for industries. It takes a while to recover. Recovery is normally slower than when there's a decline in the environment. And therefore, we always have to be very careful in protecting the business environment, because when you cause damage to it, it takes a long time to recover. So much as we are seeing this improvement in the macro level, at the micro level, it's taking quite a while for us to see the real recovery. So for example, if you wanted to expand, you need to borrow money from the system. You need to buy machines. You need to do so many things. If you are unsure of the business environment, you will not do that investment. And if you don't do that investment, you cannot employ more people. So that distinction is always there.
What extrapolations have you done at the industry level, and knowing in your economics background that all other things being equal, looking at these signs that we are seeing at the macro level, when would the real impact be felt? Because for somebody who is a contract worker with an industry, if government claims that the situation is turning around, I've not been called back. And so what numbers, timelines are you working that all other things being equal? If you are going on this path, then by the next 6 months or a year, these things will start impacting on us. Has to start calling those contract workers back.
It depends. There's different scenarios exist for different companies. For some, immediately they want to see some recovery. Others, it will take a while. But these projections are also based on certain other factors. And that's why you said all things being equal.
Yeah.
So there must be consistency in the gradual improvement that we are seeing. If we are unable to consolidate the gains we've made and allow other factors to come in, for example, between now and the end of the year, because it's an election year, one would expect that all things being equal, there will be more injection of resources into the system, so businesses will be booming. But if we overspend, next year it's going to hit us. So we need to be sure that the measures we've put in place as a country in governing the country and making sure that we are seeing some of these recoveries and macroeconomic stability, we have to consolidate it. If we're able to do so, I'm sure within a year or so, people will then see gradual improvement. It's quite slow.
So we are working, let's look at maybe like within a year.
Yeah, within a year or so.
Go on this trajectory
exactly
of the macro situation improving. Let me bring...
But before then, bear in mind that the structure of the Ghanaian economy hasn't changed significantly since independence.
Okay.
You know, a slight change here and there, but we've not changed significantly. And therefore, even if you expect to see some improvement, expecting a drastic change in the structure may not happen immediately. And that will take a while, because we are talking of industry, for example, taking a certain commanding height, you know, changing the contribution of the various key sectors to GDP. That kind of change, it will take a while. That one is not a year matter. It's going to take a while.
Let me bring in Alex Frimpong, he's Chief Executive of the Ghana Employers Association. And Mr. Frimpong, for you, what is the situation now like for you, those who are employed, those who pay the bills, those I can work to say I need a salary increment and all the rest, some improvement in my situation? We've heard that we are seeing signs of recovery. When it comes to employers, what is the situation now as we speak?
Thank you, God. Good evening to our viewers, and also good evening to Prof. Bambwati and my good friend Seth Akobwa. I think Seth has laid a very important foundation here. Business confidence is growing because they are seeing signs of recovery. But that is only one step. How are we able to ensure that consistently we are able to look at stabilization of the economy so that business can predict, business can forecast, business can plan, and also make sure that they are able to do what they can do best by ensuring that they are able to produce and also make money at the end, and at the same time ensure that they are able to expand and increase employment. So it will take time before we can see signs of real progress, but the signs are on the wall, and we need to work together to ensure businesses, government, everybody bringing the ideas together to make sure that we're able to stabilize the situation. It has not been easy in the last 5 years, but I can assure you that if we are able to work together, bringing or cross-fertilizing all ideas, I'm sure we should be able to make it. It's been quite tough in the last 4 years, and we can only collectively work together to ensure that we're able to recover.
So for you, that sign up there is yet to impact positively on your dealings and operations? Sorry, it looks like I'm having a challenge there. But let me bring in...
Can you please come again? The line was breaking.
I was saying that, Mr. Frimpong, that with respect to the signs of recovery that we are seeing at the macro level, it is yet to impact boldly on your operations when it comes to employers. Let me bring in Professor Bambwati. He's the head of the Econs Department at the University of Ghana, Legon, and a big brain when it comes to labor economy. Prof, help us appreciate the situation. I mean, the Scott Service published this data. For some, is it really a big deal because of what the economy is going through or was expected? Help us appreciate this thing from the perspective of an economist and somebody who has been following this space as a labor economist as well. Are we struggling to connect to Professor William Bambwati, Prof? If you can hear me, I was trying to find out from you that were you surprised at the data that the Scott Service put out on the unemployment situation, or was expected? I mean, help us appreciate the situation, please, Prof. Yeah, sorry, and so just to get back to you at again, and for you, let's quickly come back to the situation about the unemployment situation. How bad is the situation for you at the private sector level? Because we're thinking that, okay, if government cannot employ me, what about the private sector?
Well, honestly speaking, we all know that government is not even employing that many. The bulk of the employment is generated by the private sector. In Ghana, the informal sector is quite big and it employs a significant number of our people. But then one would expect that if there's proper growth in business, in agriculture, in manufacturing, in industry, then the growth of employment will also follow. Unfortunately, because of the challenges we've had, I speak to a lot of our companies, and clearly expansion is not in the horizon immediately. What most of them are trying to do is to consolidate what they have. At least, but what they are against is sacking people or reducing.
But isn't that taking place? Because there are some industries who are allowing their people to go.
Some have even closed down. Some have even closed down. But I'm talking of generality.
Some?
Yes.
I mean, we understand more have closed down. Some might be an understatement.
Well, some have closed down. Some are
relocating.
Also, some are relocation. I wouldn't say, the way the businesses operate, especially for the big companies that we work with, some of them have plants in other countries. And and they have different products that they produce from the different plants. Depending on where cost reduction is the best, and they are getting the best of returns on investment, they do more of that product in that country and then import from other countries. So what some of them are doing, they realize that for a particular brand or a particular product type, local environment is becoming too expensive to produce it, and bringing it from outside will become cheaper. Then they will do so.
But then the fact is that it is expensive to do that product line here. And that is why they are realigning the operation.
So they have to realign. But it also means that there are some that we are producing more here. So it works in both ways. But what, as a country, and I mean to be selfish here, would have loved that we do more of the products, whichever products in Ghana, and rather shift the investment from elsewhere to Ghana. But it's not really happening.
But the underlying issue here is about the cost of doing business. Because 5 years ago, they were here. If now they are moving their service to Cote d'Ivoire because it's more cheaper there, then the underlying reason here is that it has become more expensive to produce that good here. That's why they are moving out.
Yes, competitiveness is key, and there are so many factors of competitiveness. You have to look at your cost of capital, your cost of energy, the cost of raw materials. So many of these things come into play. And I think that Ghana, we are quite an expensive country in terms of cost of production. There are certain areas we have a bit of competitive advantage.
Quite might be an understatement. Well, we are expensive.
We are, depending on which countries you are comparing to. I mean, if you compare to
our peers in the region.
Our peers in the region, we are one of the most expensive countries.
And it looks like we are not improving in that area because increasingly...
Unfortunately, we are not improving that much.
Why are we not improving?
We are not improving that much, but I think that the potential is there. But we are not improving because we have not been able to develop the key major raw materials that help the supply chain. If you want to reduce cost of production, you have to look at the entire range of your cost of production. For those who are manufacturing, you need to have consistent, reliable supply of raw materials at the cheapest possible cost. Otherwise, if your input cost is high, it will translate into your final cost of production and then the price that you sell the products at. So once we haven't been able to develop that, every effort that goes in, you still bring the imports of the materials from somewhere. Other cost of production also comes into play. Cost of finance today is so high, it's unbearable. And people, even if you give them the funds, they probably will not borrow. Because we are talking of policy rate of 29%, lending rate to be 30-something plus. Who can do serious business, especially if it's medium to long term, borrowing at this interest rate? So these factors come into play, and it makes cost of production quite high.
And that rise in cost of production is driving some of these businesses to realign their operations by moving elsewhere because, listen, they can't continue to be. Let me bring in Professor William Babwati as we get some understanding from him. He's the head of the Econs Department at the University of Ghana, Legon Econs Department. Prof, for you, were you surprised by the numbers or it was expected when it comes to the rising unemployment situation? It looks like we are having a challenge to...
No, I can hear you.
Prof, I was saying that were you surprised by the numbers put out by the Statistical Service when it comes to our unemployment situation? Or, listen, it was expected. The economy was struggling, and employment is a reflection of
not
a
at
booming
all.
economy. So, Prof, you should talk. We can hear you, Prof.
Yes. Okay. Well, not at all. I wasn't surprised because I've been following the figures, and this is the first time the Ghana Statistical Service has done this kind of analysis based on panel data, following the same people over the past 7 quarters. Now, if you even compare it with 2021 population census, that gave us unemployment rate of 13.4%. It wasn't that surprising because of the situation that we find ourselves as a country.
And for you, what can be done about the situation?
Well, George, I think as a country, we haven't looked at this situation as a big issue. We always tackle it like just adopt firefighting approach, the memory lane. I mean, from 1984, when we started this structural adjustment program that moved our economy from that recession, we started having problems as far as the social aspect of our economy was concerned. Poverty, unemployment started going up. So what we have been doing is to just start one thing and then we change it and then we go to the other one. If you remember, in 1988, we have what we call PAMS card. It didn't work. It traveled through up to the 2000s. We have what we call the STEP program. It didn't work. We brought the National Youth Employment Program. It became GIDA. We have NEIP. There are so many programs that we have implemented. Remember the recent one of NAPCO, but we still have the problem. It means that we haven't actually tackled the problem holistically. I mean, we are talking about the private sector as the engine of growth. Private sector is supposed to be the main source of employment. And any country that you visit that has been able to solve this problem, they look at the private sector. But you can talk about the business environment, as my colleagues have said. Business environment, we are talking about high interest rates, we are talking about high taxes, we are talking about challenges with electricity, water, everything that we can think of. So the private sector that is supposed to be the main source of employment is not doing very well. And if you also look at government is also struggling, as it were. And therefore, we continue to have that kind of problem. Unless we look at the problem of creating employment as the main thing to focus on, we can bring everything along. Otherwise, we will still come back and have the figures the same way as we see it.
You raise a very, very important point, Prof, about supporting private sector. And that is what something that we're trying to focus on this evening, about what businesses can do. Do I get the understanding from you that, listen, the private sector itself is struggling. Businesses themselves are struggling. So listen, it's a doom situation for us. If government cannot employ, if the current macro situation is that bad, even the private sector can't absorb the situation?
Well, the private sector, as I've said, is supposed to be the main source of employment. But we need to bring everything on board. If you want to tackle problem of unemployment and, for that matter, quality of employment, you look at it from the 2 major angles, and then you bring in the middle one. You look at the demand side. So when I talk about the private sector, as my colleagues have said, that is the demand side of the equation. You also need to talk about the supply side. I will be a liar to say that we have any employment over the past 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years. If you look at Statistical Service data, it tells you that between over the 7 quarters that we looked at, employment has gone up. So you can see that employment to population ratio, which is supposed to be the main measure of employment generation, has gone up. But it has gone up at a very slow pace. Let me give you an example. So you have about 1.8 million people who are considered to be unemployed. And the government employment to the tune of 200. Let's say the private sector is able to add about 300,000, pardon me. If the private sector is also able to come up with, let's say, additional 300,000, you have 500,000. But you are looking at 1.8 million people who are looking for employment. In that case, then the employment that you are creating is not enough to meet the number of people who are looking for employment. That's the first thing that we normally see when we look at the data. The second part of it is that you may create employment, but it will not go to those who are looking for employment. It might even go to people who already have employment and have moved from one point to the other. So from your data, you think you have created 500,000 employment, but it only benefited 400,000 people. And therefore, you need to understand the data, you need to understand the situation. We need to look at it as a project, as a country. And then whilst we are enacting policies, we know what is on the ground. But if we just come up and say, well, unemployment rate is 14.7%, who are the unemployed? What is their educational background? What skills do they have? Are the skills relevant for what industry is looking for? We need to have a conversation on all these before we'll be able to get the problem at least solved.
So, Prof, I get from you it's also about a policy mismatch here, because we are not getting it right in terms of putting out the right policies that can create the jobs that we're all looking forward to. And let me come to you. I mean, for you as industries, again, yes, let's hold government policies constant here in working out this equation. Yes, of course, they've not been able to do it for us. But what about the business community as well? Working with academia to look at some of the problems that we can look at some of these things, because it's a serious situation. Now, you are working in an environment where people are unemployed. The security of your industries is at risk here.
I mean, the business community would always love to employ and employ more, because the essence of employing is that you are growing, you are expanding, and as you are expanding, you need more people to work with. But no business person will employ just for the sake of employment, because you cannot survive.
You're not Father Christmas.
You're not Father Christmas. You must have return on your investment. You have taken loans to do business. You must pay back the facilities. And therefore, if you spend all your money employing people and you are not generating adequate resources through expanded markets, you cannot continue to employ. So that is a fact. So businesses grow and then employ. If they don't grow, they won't employ. In the situation that we found ourselves for the past few years with the kind of crisis we had, most businesses are adapting strategies that will make them survive. And I was speaking to some of them. They said, well, at this stage, if there's anywhere they can automate a little bit to reduce even employment, they will do so, because they must introduce efficiency to be able to survive. Okay? And then where they have to, even in some instances, they outsource the employment. They don't want you to be on their permanent role, on their permanent staff list, to have all these other costs associated. So if you outsource it, another company handles it. So all kinds of arrangements in order to be able to survive. The point is that we need to see growth in business. And the way you see growth, there must be expanded market. The way you see expanded market, you must be competitive. If you are competitive and they are buying more of your products, then you have a bigger chance of employing more. Now we have a situation where in Ghana, the bulk of our products we are consuming today is imported. The influx of...
Because you're not producing more. Because your members yourself are outsourcing these things to bring it down from outside.
Yes.
If you are producing more at a very competitive price, obviously I'll come to you.
Manufacturing is tough. Cost of production is high. The difficulty in getting access to certain key elements of your ingredients and your materials is difficult. The tax levels is so high. In a situation like that, it is easier to import than to produce. And when you produce and you can't get the market because you are not that competitive because of cost, your cost is higher, then you have no choice than to downscale or scale down whatever you're doing. And in doing so, it means reducing the employment levels. And that's why as a country, if you really want to develop, if you want to create more jobs, then we must create conditions that enable the businesses to grow, especially the manufacturing and agriculture. And linking the two is key. Some of the manufacturing firms are doing well, but they can do better if they get the input supply on a reliable basis at a cheaper cost from local sources. And in doing so, if you also grow your agriculture and its feeding industry, that's another kind of employment you can create. Today, agriculture is not employing that many. You know, if you look at the data, about 36%. Years ago, it was so high. We are not saying that we should continue to push people into agriculture. We must modernize agriculture. But then once you're doing so, you're also increasing output for industry. and you are making industry more competitive. So these chains must work. If it doesn't work that well, industry will not be that competitive, because if you depend so much on imported raw materials, for example, you are virtually always needing forex to be able to do so. Access to foreign currency itself is a problem. The exchange rate depreciation becomes so unpredictable. So you are so much dependent on what happens in other countries. And that is not proper way of growing your industry and manufacturing.
And I get from you,
chains must work.
I get from you that you are rather laying off people than even employing people. That is the fact.
Well, I would
that is the situation on the ground.
Some will do so in order to survive. But there are a few that are also expanding. But generally speaking, if you put in general context, yes.
There are more businesses now that are laying off than before.
I think you can also have it from another indicator. If you look at the growth in manufacturing, consistently we are not growing. Industry itself, about 11% to GDP, and even consistently so. So if you are not seeing growth in manufacturing and growth in industry, it also means that there's no growth in employment by this sector, because they are not growing to employ more. As to whether they are laying off, as I said, we have different companies, different industries, different challenges that they are associated with. Some would lay off, some will maintain, a few employ. But if you talk about it generally speaking, I don't think we are seeing significant growth in manufacturing, and that's a fact.
And that is contributing to all of this. Let me try and bring in Alex Frimpong, Chief Executive of the Ghana Employers Association, whether we have our connection better now. So, Mr. Frimpong, for you at the employers level, what do you want to incentivize you to get more people into the business than even asking those who are there to go home?
Well, primarily it has to do with the business environment, the macroeconomic environment, looking at the cost of borrowing coming down, looking at the fact that cost of utilities coming down, looking at the fact that we are able to control the influx of shoddy goods and counterfeit products into the country. If we are able to work together to bring these indicators down to appreciable levels, I'm sure business will be able to stand up to the challenge.
But it appears that is not happening. But that's what I'm saying, that what for instance, listen, if government claims that they cannot employ people now, what are those immediate things that you want government to do for you so that the employers can take on the people that government cannot employ?
Well, one, the cost of borrowing, it is still very high. It is still very high because you need to have working capital, you need to be able to procure the latest technology, equipment, and it costs a lot of money to be able to do that. So we need to ensure that if really we want to ensure that businesses are able to stand on their feet and compete and also employ, then we need to look at the cost of borrowing, which is very, very, very important. Then we may also have to look at how we can reduce, if not control, the influx of shoddy goods, shoddy products, and counterfeits into the country. I can assure you that we have a lot of Ghanaian entrepreneurs who can compete and compete favorably. But if we are not able to control the influx of shoddy goods, counterfeit products into the country, it's going to create a lot of problems for us, because definitely the cost of doing business in Ghana or the cost of producing these products is relatively higher compared to the ones coming from Europe and Asia. So that's a major issue. Even utilities, the cost of running electricity, water in a business concern in Ghana is relatively very high. And not to talk about the fees, charges, levies by other agencies, even apart from corporate tax. Assemblies, we talk about hotels, there are a lot of taxes. If you talk about the tourist industry, a myriad of taxes, and so many of them. So altogether, you realize that if we are not able to handle the cost of production, and also how we are able to use the cost of borrowing, inflation, the forex issues, then we'll be in a challenge. But if we're able to overcome these challenges, I'm sure businesses will be able to step up. But ultimately, we need to dialogue. Dialogue is the way. Dialogue is the way because government may try to do its best to improve the environment, but at the same time, they need to listen to practitioners and also businesses, so that together with academia, we should be able to carve a path that will help all of us to boost business confidence and also have a congenial business environment.
Mr. Frimpong, you've highlighted on a very critical point here about listening to businesses. What has happened to all those rounds of engagement, pre-budget engagement, and still I get employers complaining? Is government not listening to you?
Well, I think that the engagement framework is there. But what is lacking or what is missing is that we are not able to collectively follow through to ensure that what we all mutually commit ourselves to do, we are able to achieve that. That is a challenge that we all have. Businesses will make suggestions which are very good, very genuine, which can address the issues. Government will genuinely listen to us. But beyond that, we must have a concerted effort to be sure that we are able to move this discussion, actualize them, so that collectively we can make it. If businesses do not make it, government revenue will suffer. And if government revenue suffers, it means that national development will also have problems. So collectively, we have to make sure that once we commit ourselves that businesses must thrive and grow, for government to get revenue for them, government to also have some freedom because they are able to, the business are able to employ graduates who are coming out of schools, and also increasing the purchasing power of people and taxes coming here and there, consumer taxes coming here and there. So it is the interest of government to listen to businesses so that once they thrive and grow and progress, government can also have the needed revenue to do government business.
Mr. Frimpong, you've highlighted on a lot of issues here, and I don't see those issues improving anytime soon. It appears that for a lot of us who are trying to run for solace in private sector and employers like you, if it is bad in the public sector, it appears that we have to go and sleep because there isn't even hope in the private space for employers like you to take us on.
Well, I think that businesses thrive on optimism. And for me, I'm a consummate optimist. Because if you are doing business, you must always have hope. You must always be optimistic and you must always be hopeful in the hope that things will progress. You don't just throw your hands in the air. In whatever situation, I believe that we can come out of this. And this is not the first time we are going through these challenges. In the last 50 years, Ghana has gone through ups and downs in terms of improving the business environment for businesses to thrive and grow. And I'm sure lessons learned that can help us to progress if we are able to collectively ensure that this is the way we want to go. I think we should be able to do that. But primarily, I believe that there should be optimism. We need to be more hopeful for a brighter future for the country. We cannot just throw our hands in the air.
Let me bring in Professor William Baa-Boateng here. Prof, for some, I get the understanding that, listen, it's all about, in business they'll say sometimes it's all about the bottom line. Do I also get from you that it's all about the economy? As long as the economy is struggling, listen, we will see these numbers. Do we have a situation where even developed economies where they are doing so well, the unemployment situation is not that good? Or let me frame it well. George, it's all about the economy. The economy performs. Listen, we can go and sleep.
Well, the economy will perform well if businesses are also doing very well. So the economy is not standing somewhere. The economy is made up of sectors. We have agriculture, we have industry, which is made up of manufacturing, mining, construction, and so on. We have services and so on. So when we say the economy is doing well, it means that all these sectors are also doing well, businesses are doing well, and then they are employing people. The only missing link is that you may have economic growth being high, but if indeed it is not coming from, as Chuma Kwabwa said, if it is not coming from agriculture and manufacturing, where labor absorption capacity is high, you may have the economy doing well in terms of growth, but it will not reflect on creating employment for the people. So it is not just about the economy. It is also about all the sectors. It is also about all industries within the sectors, and it's also about all economic activities.
I see. Prof, I'll come back to you on the way forward and the immediate actions we should take. But let me come to you, Mr. Chuma Kwabwa. For you, what are the things that needs to be done right now? Because when I read the report card of industry, I am worried. The relocation, the cutting down, and all the rest. And every day, things doesn't look that good. There are some who are just pay as you go and all the rest. I can do that. What can be done now so that in the next 2 quarters, the next year, we can see the situation improving when it comes to graduates who are finishing and getting first class, knowing that, listen, I have a hope in being employed by Liva and the other members?
Thank you. George, economic structure doesn't change overnight. Business and industrialization doesn't happen overnight. So you can't immediately say the next quarter and suddenly there's a boom within a quarter.
1 year.
It doesn't happen like that.
The signs.
Signs are good, and therefore let's work at it. There are low-hanging fruits though. So you have to plan differently. You have to plan for the immediate term, you have to plan for the medium term, and then the long term. We should have all these plans in place. In the immediate term, there are certain things we can do, which I'll call the low-hanging fruits. Why are manufacturers complaining? There are various products that are coming into the country, competing unfairly with you because they are maneuvering, they are not paying the right taxes, they are not policing the borders well. So those ones, they are immediate things we can do. And I can tell you, some of the companies that we work with, they will tell you they are struggling. If you take the textile company, I'll cite them as an example. The textile companies, the major problem they have is not about competition in terms of cost of production. It is more about the unfair trading that is going on. They do their designs, people go to China and other places, within 3 weeks, the products are in the market, copying them and smuggling them into
Is it only industries in Ghana that are exposed to that challenge?
I think so, because
not in other countries.
Well,
because there's always this argument about Ghanaian industries want to be overprotected.
It's not about protection. We are talking of fairness in trade. If I do my design, people go outside and copy and bring to the market at a cheaper cost. Bear in mind that where it's coming from, their cost of production is relatively lower. So when it enters the market, they outcompete you. Secondly, when they are smuggling the products in, they don't pay the right duties and taxes. It is a reason why government even saw the reason to introduce the zero VAT for the textile industry. Because otherwise, the products are being smuggled. So that is one. So police the borders immediately. Those are things you can do immediately. The tax regime can be reviewed. Why should you have a tax
under an IMF program where we need to correct the revenue situation?
Yeah, so you want to correct the revenue situation.
And convince the creditors who you are trying to give them a haircut.
So you should milk the cow that is giving you so much, that you milk him so much, it becomes so weak, you can't even get anything out of it again. I don't think that should be the approach. So the tax regime, even in this IMF situation, we can still review it and make it more tailored to support local manufacturing. These are some of the things we can do immediately. In the medium term, we should look at our value chains. I remember last year when we had our industry summit, Farm Milk said we would like to source 80% of our products, of our inputs locally.
Are they doing that? They can't.
They can't do that immediately, but they have plans to do so. They have plans to do so because the milk could be sourced locally. Of course, we must have the cattle railing going on very well, so the supply chain must work. If you take Guinness, they are sourcing some of the local products. They are not getting enough of it. Sometimes they have to import. Take Blue Skies. They are importing some of their basic raw materials like mango and the rest from Cote d'Ivoire. So those are the quick wins we can pick. In the medium term, if you plan it, most of these companies, they are prepared to source locally. As a matter of fact, it makes business sense to do so. Nestle today, the Cerelac we produce, they're actually buying the maize from Ghana in the north. If you're able to grow the maize adequately to feed them, the cost of production will go down, and then they'll produce more of it. They will employ more people. So some of these big companies are prepared to do local sourcing, but they can only do it when the products are available and at a competitive price. So in the medium term, you should plan it that way. And then in the long term...
And that is a policy decision of then government to help improve the supply chain, because then if you then get these things to cast down your cost of production, you can then employ more as the business expands.
Exactly. So policy can drive it. You can even have policies that give incentives to companies that are buying locally. In fact, there's something we call the sliding scale, which is a policy that was developed by AGR and its members, where if you use, for example, cassava, local cassava, or some local input to produce beer, you get customs, what do we call it? Your serious tax relief. So those are specific measures you can take to give incentives to local producers to source locally for their inputs. And in doing so, you're also giving opportunity for the farmers to grow it. There's always an off-taker arrangement, which when it comes in, banks are even prepared to give you more resources because they know that when you produce, there's an off-taker. That kind of thing should all be supported by policy. And when you have a policy-driven arrangement, you can grow some of it. It's not rocket science. So within a year or two, you can actually make significant changes. And then in the long term, you plan with the technology introduction and so on and so forth. So there's a lot that can be done. So I'm very hopeful. I think that if you have stability in the economy, but at the very onset, you need to have reasonable stability. If you have stability, you should be able to plan and predict. And then we need to also sort out the issue of finance. Finance is a major headache for most of the businesses. I know you set up the DBG, but how much money have we given to the development bank?
Are they supporting industries?
Not enough. They've started, but the source of their funding is still an issue. So because of that, their interest rate is still high. DBG was supposed to provide funds at the cheapest possible cost so that people can borrow and do medium to long-term investment in the manufacturing and in agriculture. But unfortunately, their cost of funding is still high. So we need to be able to give them adequate funding. I'm not sure they got inadequate funding. I know development funds have come in from World Bank, GIZ, and the rest, but then these are all dollar denominated. And to keep it at the face value, you must necessarily increase the interest rate to keep even if it's given to you at 0%. So therefore, the source of funding for doing development projects, doing medium to long-term funding arrangements has to be good in order to be able to sustain it. So funding has to be sorted out because most of the Ghanaian entrepreneurs, access to funding is a major problem. So they can't upskill. And once you operate in a very small scale, you can't enjoy economies of scale. That's why most of the indigenous Ghanaian businesses are not doing that well. Funding is a major, major problem. And if we consider manufacturing as a strategic and linking manufacturing to agric as a strategic way to create employment, then we need to push more of our resources in there. But the percentage of resources that go into this area, I don't think it's that much. It's not sufficient. So really, there's a lot that can be done. And I'm very hopeful that if we put proper measures in place and plan well, we can grow the manufacturing and the agricultural sector.
Prof. William Barbwhiten, some would say there's a huge elephant in the room, the IMF program, where it's more of looking at correction, contraction, fiscal prudence, and all those things. And all those things has an impact on employment, where even some would say in the government sector, freeze on employment until maybe it's essential service. That is a very big problem in trying to undertake this correction of the economy and giving some hope to the youth and the graduates that are coming out of universities that you can get employed in the public sector.
Well, I think a lot has been said, and within the IMF program, one would say that government may need more revenue and therefore talking about taxes may be a problem. But where I sit, I think government needs to look at the tax charges, levies regime to be able to know that there are a lot of leakages in the charges and fees and levies, which do not go to government, but the public, and for that matter, businesses are paying. If you look at the tourism industry, I can tell you there are 14 different taxes, levies, fees, and charges. Now, the only one that go, the few that go to government come up to give us 13% of GDP. However, a lot of them go to what they call authority, as far as the structure of our governance structure is concerned. So, tourist authority will be entitled to 1% of net turnover of conference facilities and hotels and so on. And these revenue that go to these authorities, how is the government able to monitor them? So government only looks at what comes to the consolidated fund, but those who are paying as many as 14. Can we look at this and consolidate them and know how much people are paying and how much government could have gotten to be able to get what we want? We are talking about exemptions, and I think this doesn't need to be repeated. I guess we have passed the exemption bill. If I'm wrong, you can forgive me, but we're still giving exemptions to a lot of businesses. I want to find out if these exemptions are going to manufacturers. If it's going to manufacturing companies that are employing more, one would say that, well, we are trying to swap tax revenue for employment. But when you go deeper into it, you may realize that that is not the truth. So it is not about just being within the IMF framework, but breaking it down into the micro to be able to know where we are going to get the money from, where are the leakages, are we doing what is right to be able to get the necessary revenue, or we are just looking at the aggregate and therefore pouring on taxes and taxes. I think we need to interrogate the tax regime. That is the low-hanging fruit, as I can say. But we can go to the medium and longer term, where you look at our education system, you look at our land tenure system to be able to produce more, mechanize our agriculture, link agriculture to manufacturing, to be able to get more people employed. That will be the medium to long term.
Prof, you've spoken about the educational system, and that is where I'll push you against the wall. And there are some who are also saying that the educational institutions, the higher educational institutions, they have not helped the situation when it comes to dealing with the unemployment situation. The collaboration between academia and the business community. If government has failed us, what about academia and the business community? There's a huge challenge there, Prof.
The educational system needs to be revamped, and it must start from the basic education through to secondary education and tertiary education. If you look at the numbers, I think I shared with you some numbers. And when you look at it, you realize that unemployment rate is highest among those with secondary and senior high school. Why is it so? It is because of the fact that we came up with a policy which is good for everybody. Free SHS, excellent. But have we prepared the labor market to be able to absorb them, even if they go to tertiary institutions? And the free SHS first batch are in the final year of the university now. Have we been able to prepare the labor market to be able to absorb them? No. So it means that we started looking at the supply side, but we haven't looked at the demand side. And I will throw this to you and we can investigate. When you look at what is happening in the unemployment situation, the secondary school is getting the highest because of one thing. In the past, somebody completes basic education, and if he's not able to get to secondary education, he learns trade. He can go and do maybe just go to some magazine or Kokumpe to learn something, maybe hairdressing, tailoring, and so on. He didn't find those enterprises to be something that they don't want to go. Now we have introduced a very nice scheme, free SHS. These people finish free SHS, and if they are not able to get to the university, you want them to go and learn trade, they will tell you, no, if I wanted to learn trade, I would have finished at BEC. We need to interrogate that. So long as we introduce policy, we have to make it holistic. We are preparing these children. I can tell you as a teacher in the university, when the students come from senior high school, you can see that they are not prepared at all. If you give a student an essay to talk about the Ghanaian economy, and he gives you just half a page, thinking that I have exhausted everything, it means that at the basic level, we have not introduced the students to how to write essays and so on. So if I extend it to engineering and all those things, you see that at the basic level, we are not preparing the students well to be able to adapt to what we are teaching them in the university. I don't think in the university, that is where you are going to teach somebody, I didn't went. You expect that these things have been taught at the basic level, and when they come, you build upon it. It gets to a point where it becomes very difficult to be able to get them to a level that you want. I think we need to look at the educational system from KG up to the university level, look at what we can do, and make sure we outline everything that we do to be able to meet the needs of what economy that we are building.
Prof, you've spoken about the policy bit. I also want to look at the tertiary bit, what is within your fold, and what are you doing? The bit about even industrial attack, because apart from the economic bit, there's also the bit about being able to work with what is being produced. And so I stand to educated how that is feeding into the unemployment situation. If the universities are producing graduates that I cannot work with, I will not employ them as industries here and employers. That isn't your fault.
They are coming out in their numbers. I mean, if you are talking about 15,000 people graduating in a particular year, I can tell you we can have very excellent ones within. But when you look at the numbers, you may have a lot more that you think they are not well prepared. There are some of them that are good that you can make use of them. But of course, I can tell you that the tertiary institutions are doing their bit. Many of the universities have introduced internship. You come to University of Ghana, we have internship policies that we are running, and we expect that we link students to industries. We link students to the world of work. I prefer to use that one because not only industry, as we see it, that the students are supposed to go and work, they can also go to other areas. So this internship, many students come and then we are able to introduce them to certain areas. We give them letters so that when they go and have vacation employment, by the time they come out of school, they know certain work ethics and so on. And I guess many of the other universities are doing so.
Prof, just a rude intervention. You were talking to a data about the level of education and how that is feeding into the employment situation. I have that on the screen. If you can just do a quick run, I'll be grateful. The bit about the primary GHS and with the data. If you can help me, I'll be so grateful. Just quick run through this data.
So what you have there is trying to break down unemployment by education and also by age. So if you look at the first one, which is the blue one, we are talking about unemployment by education for everybody who is 15 years and above. And if you look at the figures, you will see that secondary school is supposed to be the highest. If I have mine, I could have given you the figures, but you see the blue one is still the secondary school, which is the highest. And when you come to the green one, we are talking about those who are 15 years, between 15 and 35. That is the young people, 15 and 35. And we are looking at their unemployment by education. And you still see that unemployment increases with education. And that is where we see secondary school also being the highest. But when you break it into between 15 and 24, you see that bachelor's becomes the highest. Why? Because many of our students end their bachelor's or they leave their bachelor's at around 22, 23. So they do their national service. So between 22 and 24, that is where they are looking for job. So within that 2 years, many of them are looking for job. And that is why you have them to be very high. And it is very simple to explain this. And I've said it many times. Unemployment rate becomes very low for those who have no education or less than primary education. It is also low for those with primary education and even JHS. But when you go to education, those who have some level of education, it becomes higher because when they have secondary school or bachelor's or PhD, they don't see informal sector as the way to go. But those who are below basic education, I use this phrase, he that is down needs fear no fall. In other words, you don't have any education or you only have primary education. You cannot look at the formal sector as the place to have your employment. You look at the informal sector and take refuge there. And always you will have that to be very low. But those who have education and they don't see the informal sector as attractive, but the formal sector is not expanding enough to absorb these people, you will tend to have unemployment rate to be high. So it is not okay.
Prof, just hold on quickly. I still want to hold on there. Let me bring in Alex Frimpong. And so let's have the data on our screens, please. And I'll come to Chimakabo as well. Are fresh graduates and young and savvy people, someone 35 years, he has a PhD, are they demanding so much that now it is difficult to employ some of these people? Or what? Just looking at this data where the more people are educated, the difficulty is it to have jobs. I remember a friend told me this, and George, I went to an interview. He said they want to employ me. Later they said, listen, we cannot pay you. And so they had to let me go. Is that a problem for you as an employer, Mr. Frimpong?
Well, I think the issue is not about the qualifications that are coming to the labor market. The issue is that businesses do not have the requisite vacancies that can absorb a lot of these young graduates. That's one. Two, in the past, when all of us left university, we didn't know anything. We got opportunity as fresh graduates to be trained on the job, and businesses had the time and the patience to groom us to be fit for purpose. Because at that time, businesses were not having so much difficulties coping with the challenges in the business environment. The same cannot be said of today. Now, if the business wants some skill, immediately they need to find other means of procuring that skill to improve their productivity or production, other than getting the time and the patience to train a young graduate. And we need to be very clear about this. So the time was when businesses would just engage young ones and grow them, nurture them for over a period so that they can be fit for purpose. Now, not many organizations will be able to do that. So I think, that, again, the numbers are also frightening. As Prof. Babwati said, the numbers are frightening. If you look at the vacancies available as against the growing number of graduates coming out, then you would appreciate that even though there are very, very good, talented ones, highly skillful ones, not many of them will find employment.
Interesting. So it is not true that we are demanding so much, and therefore, listen, I would rather prefer to go and get an SSS graduate and employ. That is not the situation, Mr. Frimpong.
Well, I don't think that is the case. Look, there are very, very, very sharp, brilliant, talented ones who are coming through the system. And I can assure you that if you sit in interviews, you'll be amazed at how 20, 21-year-olds, first-class graduates, engineering, finance, and what have you, the type of ideas they have and the type of contributions that they give them, the opportunities they can bring to the business, you may be surprised. But not many of them will find employment because the vacancies are limited and there are so many of them. We should not really underestimate the intelligence of the young ones today. Given the opportunity, I can assure you that they can make significant progress on how we can manage our affairs in this country. But especially when it comes to employment, I can assure you that the challenge you have is that the supply is exceeding demand, and we need to really contend with that. And we can only cope with that when, as I said earlier on, we improve the economic situation in the country. We are able to support business by way of access to cheaper finance, and also ensuring that Ghanaian business become competitive. That's what everybody is doing. Even though nobody is saying that we should have a closed shop when it comes to dealing with your national affairs. Realistically, all countries are protecting their environments and making sure that they are nationals first. If that economic nationalism does not really ring a bell to us, I can assure you that we want to open our doors. We are going to have a lot of challenges.
Yeah. I'll come back to you, Mr. Frimpong, but let me come to industries and manufacturing firms. I mean, when we were young, we were being encouraged that go to school, and you get a good job. The data is defeating that. And that comes back to my question that, are we having too much skilled people coming out of tertiary institutions? They are demanding more money, more better conditions, and you just cannot take them on?
I think Alex answered it.
Yeah.
For the manufacturing sector or industry sector, it looks at labor productivity. If I will employ you and pay you 100 cedis, and then your productivity will give me 500, I'm getting better return on having you than to go employ somebody. I will pay 50 cedis, and his productivity will give me 100 cedis, because yours is giving me 5 times as much. So any serious seasoned business person or manager would like to employ the one who has better skill and can therefore multiply, have a much better multiplier effect than employing a lower skilled person. So it's not really the case that because you've come out of tertiary institution and because you are demanding a little bit of a higher salary to commensurate to your educational level, I wouldn't employ you. I think the critical issue is what he mentioned. There aren't that many vacancies around.
The universities are overproducing.
Yeah, the universities are producing a lot, which is good. We are educating everybody, it's good. But then it's not enough. You should be able to link education to research, to science, to technology development, and then to productivity. When you are able to do this and develop the right skills, that's where the industry will be able to take you. Bear in mind that there's also competition even among the businesses themselves. Today, when you have spent so much time and effort to train a particular individual or labor, he can be easily poached away. And therefore, the time when people could take time and really develop the skills of their workers and really make use of them is going, because now we want to have ready-made skills so that when you employ, the next day the person is working, is adding to your productivity levels. First, initially they used to have a training program where you can work a whole year in a company.
The management training system.
Management training system and all that. But you see, competition even among the companies themselves is also driving this. And therefore, people want some level of skills developed before they even employ you. So I think that it's not so much the education, the higher education you've achieved. It's rather the skill. Today, technology is driving everything. You could have somebody, and you see, when it comes to productivity, it's not too much the education either, it's the skill. And therefore, if somebody has come from a secondary school, okay, say SSS, and he's so skillful in what he's doing, he's managed to understand technology so well, and basic things, data entry, everything that you ask him to, he's able to do it so skillfully. Somebody has come from a tertiary institution, and then he is all theory with a PhD or whatever, and you cannot do what the secondary school person is doing. It's not because he has a higher education. I'm looking at the productivity that I'm getting and the multiplier effect on my bottom line. And that is how they use, that's the major determining factor. So therefore, what I would advise is that we should not discourage people from getting tertiary education because of what you're saying.
The PhD, rather, the MPhils, the MBA.
Get it. It's too good. But in doing so, be practical in your orientation. Learn something else. I mean, if you are a university student, what stops you from working with an SME and getting some practical experience and skills on the ground? Through that, you build your CV. You will say, I've worked here before, You may have even been the manager of a small enterprise. It could be a 5-10 man employee enterprise, but you can still get some skills, and then you can then move to a higher level. So don't shy away from learning the practicals. It is so critical, and that's why I like what Dr. Bambuatin said, that they have Professor Bambuatin said, they have an attachment program. We do a lot in AGI to link some of the students to our companies to get a bit of attachment. That practical experience you get propels you to get better jobs when you grow. But it's not so much the fact that you are demanding. It's the skill, your ability to make proper use of your skill to contribute to my bottom line. That's what they will look at for in employing you.
I'll be coming back to pick the final thought of my panelists, especially Professor Bambuatin, the bit about entrepreneurism and whether we failed in that direction in terms of the policy going forward. We'll take a short break and we'll be right back. This is PM Express Business Edition. As we try and welcome to PM Express Business Edition to look at Ghana's rising unemployment situation, what can businesses do? And as we try to wrap up our discussion on this program, Prof, in trying to wrap up in about a minute or 2 minutes for you, the way forward, and also if you can box in the bit about entrepreneurship as well, have we also failed in this direction? Because listen, the business community cannot absorb everyone.
Entrepreneurship, and I would say that I think we are not looking at entrepreneurship from business perspective. We are looking at entrepreneurship as somebody just trying to get something on a tabletop and sell or maybe do something with it. And that is why we don't seem to have entrepreneurship moving forward as it were. Let me tell you, if you take the data all over the world, the best form of employment is wage employment, working for somebody to employ you. If you take data from US, Germany, whatever, 80% of employment are wage employment. Why is it so? Because you are talking about an entrepreneur who has started and expanded, started with maybe 2 people, and now he has employed 7,000 or even 100,000. How many people have been employed by Dangote? How many people are being employed even in Ghana by my colleague and friend in manufacturing? So you are talking about entrepreneurship that looks ahead, not entrepreneurship that I would say is just to be BDA. Because if somebody completes university and then you say, I want you to set up your own enterprise, and then you train the person and you give the person 10,000. Remember, entrepreneurship is risk-taking. If the person is not somebody who has the ability to take risk, that 10,000 will just whittle away within a short period of time. But if you have somebody who is a risk taker and has business acumen, and then you are able to train that person, give that person enough, not 10,000, but you give that person 500,000, give that person a bit of tax holiday, give the environment, and the person will be able to move forward within a short period of time and employ his colleagues, and that will be what will mean the best form of entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship doesn't also thrive in business environment as we find now. If the existing ones, the bigger ones, are struggling with taxes, struggling with interest rate, struggling with electricity and so on, how do you expect somebody who just starts business to be able to do well within this environment? So to be able to develop entrepreneurship, we need to look at the business environment as well.
Mr. Frimpong, in a minute, way forward, in just a minute, way forward. Mr. Frimpong.
Well, thank you, George. I think we need to work together, government, the business community, academia, especially our experts in finance, economics, and related subjects. We need to work together to make sure that we cross-fertilize ideas and come up with solutions of the day that will help ensure that businesses thrive and grow. We're able to employ, we're able to stabilize the economy so that the country can be able to rise up to the growing challenge. Because the global outlook on the economy is quite difficult. But countries, depending upon how they want to work together, can make a case and achieve their national objective. So I think that dialogue should be the way.
Okay. Mr. Juma Kobwa, final thought, way forward in a minute.
Well, the rising unemployment situation is a concern, but there's definitely a solution, and we should work together to make sure we grow our informal sector to become more formal. We are talking of employment, but we're also talking of quality employment.
Yeah.
When you talk to people who are employed and they say they are unemployed, it means that they have something doing, but the quality of it is so poor that they don't consider themselves as employees. So therefore, we should grow the informal to absorb more people in a formal manner, and then also grow the medium enterprises to become large-scale enterprises, have a sustainable arrangement for jobs creation. I think it is key that we work together to make sure this happens. And government has a major role to play together with the private sector.
Sir Chuma Kobwa is the Chief Executive of the Organization of Ghana Industries. Professor William Boateng is the head of the Econs Department at the University of Ghana, Legon. And also Mr. Alex Frimpong, he's Chief Executive of the Ghana Employees Association. For these people joining me as we have a discussion on a rising unemployment situation, what can businesses do? I know the debate will go on in your homes and your offices, but how we can better address this challenge. My name is George Afe. Have a good day.